What if the voice telling you to quit went silent forever? What if the struggle you're facing right now isn't a sign to stop, but a signal that you're about to break through? You weren't given this pain to break you. You were given it to build you. This moment you're in, the pressure, the fatigue, the doubt, this is not your exit. This is your proving ground. Because no man has ever risen without first being broken. No empire has ever stood without storms. And no mind has ever been made of steel without first walking through fire. You say it's hard? Then good. That means it's working. This speech is not here to soothe you. I did not come to give you permission to stop. I came to wake up the force that lives beneath your weakness, the version of you that fights, that executes, that refuses to crawl back into comfort. Let the quitters quit. Let the fearful retreat. But you, don't you dare quit. You've come too far. You've survived too much. And everything you fought for waits just beyond this pain. So you don't stop here. You don't break here. You build here. Now stand up inside your own mind and let the world hear your silence louder than their noise. This is your hour. Let's begin. When the going gets hard, most men look for a way out. They begin to whisper lies to themselves. Maybe this wasn't meant for me. Maybe now's not the right time. Maybe I've done enough. But let me speak to the part of you that remembers who you were before the world taught you how to retreat. Pain is not your enemy. Pressure is not a sign to stop. Resistance is not a red light. It is a gatekeeper, a test, a sacred threshold that only the few, the builders, the doers, the deciders, will ever walk through. And the man who walks through it is not the same man who entered it. He is stronger, sharper, real. That's the purpose of hardship, to strip you down until all that remains is truth, until every excuse burns in the fire, until only the part of you that is unbreakable survives. Andrew Carnegie once told me something I never forgot. He said, "Adversity is the refining fire of destiny. It burns away the weak man. It leaves only the man who is ready to lead." Carnegie did not rise from privilege. He was a poor Scottish immigrant working in a telegraph office, earning almost nothing. But every hour he worked, he watched, he listened, he prepared. And when the opportunity came, he did not flinch. Because the fire he walked through, the long days, the uncertainty, the low pay, had already forged his mind. And here you are, in your own fire. And I ask you, what will this fire leave behind? Will it leave a man who folded under pressure? Or will it leave a man so focused, so steady, so commanding that the world has no choice but to move around him? Charles M. Schwab was no stranger to pressure. As the right hand of Carnegie, he faced the storms of industry, the roar of competition, the resistance of men who were older, richer, more experienced than he. But what set Schwab apart was not genius, it was resilience. He did not fold. He moved swiftly, decisively. He led from the front when others were shrinking in the shadows. I once asked him how he dealt with fear. He said, "Mr. Hill, fear is a fog, and a man must learn to walk forward even when he cannot see. You may not see your future clearly right now. You may be in the fog of fatigue, surrounded by doubt. But hear me clearly. You still walk. You still move. You still build. Because the man who waits for clarity will never lead. The man who says, 'I'll push when it's easier,' will never arrive." Let's talk of Henry Ford, a man who was told his vision was foolish, that the car was a novelty, that it would never replace the horse. Even his own engineers said his idea for an 8-cylinder engine couldn't be done. And you know what he told them? Build it anyway. He said it not once, but over and over again until they did. Because Ford understood something the average man never will, that when everything seems to resist you, it's not always the world testing you. It's your mind asking, "Do you really want this?" And you answer not with words, but with persistence, relentless execution, unbreakable identity. Ford didn't stop because it was hard. He became Ford because it was hard, and he kept going anyway. You think success comes with ease? You think the men who built nations, industries, inventions, movements, you think they did it with comfort? Number. They did it tired. They did it misunderstood. They did it surrounded by doubt from others and from themselves. But they moved anyway because they had made a decision and never once opened the door to retreat. Let me be clear with you. If you are tired right now, good. It means you've been in the arena. If you are doubting right now, good. It means you're pushing the boundaries of what you thought you were capable of. If you are under pressure, good. It means you're doing something that matters. But I will not let you quit, because quitting now is not just a betrayal of your goals. It is a betrayal of your identity. And I know the man you are becoming, the one who keeps showing up, the one who listens not to fear, but to vision, the one who would rather suffer for purpose than coast in mediocrity. Let the crowd rest, let them doubt, let them walk away when it gets heavy. But you do not get to quit, because this fire you are in, it is making you. And when you rise from it, when the world will know that you were not lucky, you were not gifted, you were not saved, you were forged. Keep going. Don't you dare quit. You must understand something now, perhaps more deeply than you ever have before. The pain you feel today is not a punishment. It is a process, a sacred rite of passage, a furnace that burns away the soft edges, the hesitations, the illusions, and leaves only iron. And yet, what do most men do when they feel that fire? They run. They look for comfort. They retreat to what is familiar. But you will not do that. You were not built to run. You were built to withstand. You were built to build. And nothing worthy has ever been built without cost. Let us speak plainly. There will be days when nothing goes your way, when the voices around you question everything you're doing, when even the small steps forward feel like dragging stone uphill. And on those days, the temptation will whisper, maybe I should pause. Maybe I should slow down. Maybe I should quit. But those whispers are not your voice. They are the voice of drift, the voice of old identity trying to drag you back to safety, to comfort, to the version of you that never finished anything. And you are done living like that. You must now speak louder than those whispers. You must say, no, I am not going anywhere. I may be tired, I may be stretched, but I am not broken. I will not fold, and I will not leave this chapter unfinished. This is the moment when your identity changes, not with a celebration, but with a choice. The choice to continue, the choice to carry the weight, even when your legs shake, the choice to not back down. When Abraham Lincoln was leading a nation through war, he was not greeted with applause. He was attacked from every side, mocked, slandered, betrayed. His cabinet questioned him. The people doubted him. The war dragged on longer than anyone expected. And still, he stood quiet, focused, unbending. He carried the burden of the nation, not because he was invincible, but because he had decided what must be done. He was not moved by noise. He was not swayed by fatigue. He was anchored to purpose. And that is what you must be now, anchored. Anchored to your mission, anchored to your future, anchored to the man you said you would become. There will be no applause for this decision, no audience watching, no instant reward. Just silence, and pain, and progress. But make no mistake, every day you push through this storm, you are building a life that no storm can shake. This is where you earn the crown, not when it's easy, not when you feel good, but now, when it's hard, when it's heavy, when every part of you wants to stop, and you don't. The man who continues when he could quit, he becomes undeniable. And here is what the world won't tell you. Most people give up just before the moment that would have changed everything. They were one conversation away, one client away, one new habit away, one more rep, one more call, one more sunrise of discipline, and they let it go. because the going got hard. Let this burn into your mind. You are not most people. You are not average. You do not operate on feelings. You do not follow ease. You follow purpose. You follow vision. You follow a code. And that code is carved into your spirit with words like relentless, resilient, ruthless. And that code does not include quitting. When Thomas Edison was working on the electric light, he failed thousands of times. He watched his materials explode. He watched people call him a fool. He watched his own team question the mission. But do you know what he never did? He never doubted the result. He had already decided what the end would be, and every failure was simply another confirmation of progress. That is how you must now view this moment in your life. It is not a defeat. It is not a wall. It is a passage. And you are walking through it, head up, eyes forward, heart full of decision. You do not stop when it's hard. You become harder. You do not retreat from resistance. You rise through it. You do not ask, will I make it? You say, watch me build this until there's no doubt left. And if no one claps, you keep going. If no one sees the work, you keep going. If no one believes in you, you believe. You execute. You finish. Because the fire you are in right now is temporary, but the strength it will leave in you, that will last forever. Keep going, and don't you dare quit. There will come a day when all this pressure, this pain, this fatigue, this loneliness will make sense. A day when the weight you carried becomes the strength you wear. When the silence you endured becomes the stillness in your soul. When the work you did in the dark becomes the light that others follow. But that day only comes to the man who refuses to lay down. It does not come to the clever. It does not come to the entitled. It comes to the one who kept going when there was no visible reward, who built when no one believed, who didn't ask how long will this take, but simply said, as long as it takes. Let us speak again of a man I studied more than any other, Andrew Carnegie. When he first arrived in America, he was a poor immigrant boy. He had nothing but hunger for knowledge, for opportunity, for greatness. He began as a messenger boy in a telegraph office. And do you think his path upward was paved with ease? He worked long hours. He sacrificed comfort. He was overlooked, underpaid, and doubted. But he continued. Each job he took, he gave more than was expected. Each obstacle he faced, he used as training. He endured the strain because he had a vision far greater than his conditions. And through relentless forward motion, through sacrifice without applause, he built an empire of steel and became the wealthiest man of his time. But more than his fortune, it was his example that matters. He showed us that greatness is not born, it is built. And it is built in silence, in sweat, in hard decisions, in perseverance when others would have crumbled. That same blood runs through you. That same fire exists in your mind. You are not just here to survive, you are here to build, to create, to lead. And the only way to fulfill that calling is to keep walking, especially when your legs shake, because this is where most men quit. They confuse pressure for punishment. They confuse discomfort with failure. They think hard means wrong. But nothing could be further from the truth. Hard means you're being forged. Hard means you've left the old self behind. Hard means you're in the middle of the mountain, and the peak is closer than you think. Let me remind you of Charles M. Schwab, who rose from a humble clerk to the president of U.S. Steel under Andrew Carnegie. Schwab was not the most brilliant man in the room, but he had one trait that made him invaluable. He never stopped producing. When others were paralyzed by doubt or waiting for perfect plans, Schwab moved. He acted. He led. And in times of chaos, he built. That's what makes a man irreplaceable. That's what makes a man immortal in the memory of history. Not how clever he was, not how smooth his path, but how he carried the burden without breaking. And you too will become that man if you refuse to let pressure become an excuse. Let me tell you now, with absolute certainty, that this storm will pass. This chapter will close. This weight will lift. But when it does, the real question will be, who did you become because of it? Did you fold? Did you wait? Did you whimper and wish for better days? Or did you rise? Did you decide that this would be the moment that made you unshakable? Say this with me now, and say it like a man who means it. I do not shrink under pressure. I am shaped by it. I do not run from pain. I rise through it. When the going gets hard, I go harder. These are not just words. They are your weapons. Use them. Use them in the morning when the weight returns. Use them at night when doubt creeps in. Use them when the old voice says, "This is too much." Because that voice is not your future. It is your past, begging you to come back. But you've already left that man behind. And what stands ahead, if you stay the course, is a life so solid, so grounded, so unbreakable, that even fear itself will not dare knock again. Keep walking and don't slow down, don't second guess, and don't you dare quit. Not now, not ever. There comes a point on the path of every builder when the world goes quiet. The applause stops. The results don't come. The progress slows to a crawl. And in that silence, a question echoes so loudly it drowns out everything else. Is this still worth it? This is the test that separates men who dabble from men who dominate, because everyone begins with fire. Everyone begins with a goal, but only a few continue when the results disappear and the struggle multiplies. It is here in the dark middle, in the days when momentum vanishes, that you are either forged or forgotten. Let me tell you something few will say plainly. The pain you're feeling is not a sign to quit. It is the sign you are finally in the process of becoming, not the version of you that begins things, but the version that finishes them. Not the man who makes plans, but the man who executes through resistance. When Thomas Edison was deep into his work on the electric light, he had already faced over 5,000 failures. The money was running dry. The media mocked him. His own workers questioned whether the idea would ever work. But Edison, he refused to give up the idea because the results hadn't arrived yet. Instead, he made the results inevitable by refusing to stop. When asked by a young reporter if he ever considered giving up, he said, "Young man, I have not failed. I've just found 5,000 ways that won't work." Understand what that means. He had already decided the outcome. He didn't need to see it. He chose it. That is what men of destiny do. They commit so deeply that reality has no choice but to align. And I tell you now, you must do the same. Stop asking whether you're on the right path just because it hurts. The right path hurts the most at first. It cuts away your weakness. It reveals your doubt. It drags every excuse into the light and dares you to keep going anyway. Henry Ford was not celebrated when he decided to create a vehicle for the common man. He was laughed at, attacked. Even his most trusted engineers said the project was impossible. But Ford, he did not seek their approval. He already saw the assembly line in his mind. He already felt the product in the hands of the people. And so when they told him it couldn't be done, he told them simply, "Build it anyway." That is power, that is clarity, and that is the standard you must hold yourself to now. This moment you're in, this pressure, this doubt, is the gate to everything you said you wanted. But most men never pass through it. They turn back. They tell themselves they'll try again when it's easier. They lie to themselves with phrases like, "It's just not the right time," or "Maybe this isn't meant for me." It is meant for you, but only if you finish what you started. Because dreams do not belong to the man who plans them. They belong to the man who suffers for them, who builds them when it's boring, who walks through the storm when the wind screams at him to turn back. Let me tell you what I learned from Charles M. Schwab, one of the greatest executives of the industrial age. He once told me, "Mr. Hill, the men who run when things get hard don't realize they were 10 feet from the gold." And it's true. I watched it happen again and again. Men who were one decision away, one day away, one act of discipline away from the breakthrough, quit. And it wasn't because they lacked ability. It was because they lacked endurance. So I say to you now, endure. Endure the silence, endure the pressure, endure the unseen hours, because those who continue when it's hard are the only ones who deserve the reward when it arrives. Repeat after me, and say it like you mean it. I do not pause when it gets hard. I lean in. I do not seek escape. I seek mastery. Pain is not a reason to quit. It is proof that I am being rebuilt. Let these words live in your chest. Let them anchor you when the path grows cold. Let them become your rhythm, a rhythm that fear cannot disrupt. Because the man who keeps walking, even when the light disappears, even when the applause dies, even when no one believes, he does not just survive the storm. He becomes it. There is a secret the world rarely speaks aloud, a truth known only to the few who have stood on the edge of collapse and kept moving. Your greatest strength will always be revealed when you have no strength left. Not when you're motivated, not when you're winning, but when you're tired, alone, questioning everything. It is in those moments, when most men fold, that the man of destiny is shaped. You see, when the going gets hard, your old identity begins to die. The identity that sought comfort, that wanted quick results, that needed praise to keep going. That version of you cannot survive the pressure, and that's a gift, because pressure doesn't just break men, it purifies them. Let me tell you about Abraham Lincoln. When Lincoln entered the White House, the country was already splintering. States were seceding. War was inevitable. Advisors wavered. Public confidence was low. And the weight of a divided nation sat squarely on his shoulders. But Lincoln didn't waver. He didn't look for easier answers or defer responsibility. He sat with the pressure. He carried the burden. And through that relentless endurance, he gave America its spine. He didn't become a giant because it was easy. He became one because he kept showing up when most men would have collapsed. That's the kind of man you must become now. You're not in this for a convenient victory. You're in this to evolve, to shed everything soft and fearful in you, and emerge as a man who leads his mind, commands his emotions, and moves with unwavering direction. Let me say this again. The going gets hard not to stop you, but to stretch you. You want courage? It's built when your hands shake and you move anyway. You want discipline? It's forged when your body says rest and your mind says one more. You want belief? It is grown by continuing through days when your thoughts try to betray you. Andrew Carnegie, the man who shaped my understanding of wealth and will, once told me, no man becomes powerful until he no longer requires things to be easy. He meant this, truly meant it. He didn't seek the path of least resistance. He chose the path that demanded his entire being, because he knew it was there and only there that his greatness would rise. He told me, the mountain does not grow smaller. You grow stronger. And you, my friend, are growing stronger now, even if you don't feel it yet. So let us make this practical. When the going gets hard, and it will, here is what you do. You do not retreat. You take one small action, even if it's imperfect, even if it's invisible to the world. Action, not motivation, is your lifeline. You return to your aim, revisit your definite purpose, read it aloud, reconnect to your mission. Fear multiplies in men who forget why they started. You eliminate the noise. Don't explain your fatigue to anyone. Don't seek comfort from people who've never built anything. Sit in silence and remember who you are. You rehearse your power, repeat it. I was made for this. Say it with certainty, not because you feel strong, but because you decide to be. And then you continue. You continue when no one's watching. You continue when the applause stops. You continue when fear whispers, maybe this isn't worth it. Because your consistency in pain, in pressure, in silence, is the evidence that you are becoming a man this world cannot break. So let me leave you with this. Say it out loud, with force, with fire, with no hesitation. I am not done. I am not finished. I do not quit. I rise. Because the man who becomes unstoppable is not the one who starts fast. He is the one who refuses to stop no matter how slow the path becomes. And that man is you. There will come a moment in every man's journey, a quiet, almost invisible moment, when the pain becomes louder than the progress, when the goal you once shouted with certainty now feels like a whisper beneath the weight of struggle. That moment is not a sign to stop. It is a signal that you are nearing the threshold where most turn back and the few press forward. Let me be clear. Pain is not the enemy. The enemy is comfort, the seductive whisper that tells you to settle, to ease up, to coast. Comfort is the true killer of greatness because it doesn't arrive like a storm. It shows up like a warm bed on a cold morning and convinces you to stay there forever. Charles M. Schwab, one of the greatest steel magnates of his time, understood this with deadly clarity. Schwab worked under Carnegie, not because he was the most skilled man in the room, but because he had the fire to endure pressure most men avoided. When production quotas weren't met, when tensions rose in the ranks, Schwab didn't hide behind reports or delay action. He walked directly into the furnace of the problem and stayed there until a solution appeared. Why? Because he didn't seek comfort, he sought growth, and he understood that growth and comfort are enemies. That's the lesson here. Pain is not punishment. It's preparation. It means you are no longer living on the level of the man you used to be. You are stepping into something higher, something heavier. And the muscles of your mind, your will, and your character are breaking and reforming under the strain. That's not failure. That's formation. And here's what the average man misses. When the pain increases, they slow down. They justify quitting. They say things like, maybe this isn't meant to be. But the few, the very few who rise, they take pain as the confirmation that their growth has begun. Let me tell you about Thomas Edison. Edison was not born into brilliance. He was not the most naturally gifted thinker. But he had something rare, tolerance for discomfort. 10,000 times he failed to produce a working light bulb. 10,000 times. Not 10, not 100. 10,000. Now imagine that. Imagine the mental pressure, the financial stress, the public ridicule, the internal doubt, and still, he moved forward. When asked why he didn't give up, he said something the weak-minded couldn't understand. I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Now pause. Reflect. That is not a man running from pain. That is a man who embraced it so fully, so relentlessly, that the pain became irrelevant, just part of the process. And if he could do that, with the world doubting him, with nothing but setbacks in his hands, what excuse have you? You are not too tired. You are too comfortable. You are not broken. You are being broken open. You are not stuck. You are being called to move with more force than ever before. So here is what I demand of you in these moments when the going gets hard. Do not soften. Do not retreat into logic. Do not disguise your fear as taking a break. Lean in. Lean in so far that fear loses its footing. Lean in so hard that comfort can no longer hold you, because the man who presses forward while in pain becomes the man who cannot be stopped when strength returns. Say this now with your chest. Pain does not weaken me. It sharpens me. Comfort is not my goal. Growth is. When it gets hard, I go harder. This is the turning point, not in your work, not in your environment, in your identity, because from this point forward, pain will no longer be your reason to stop. It will be your reason to rise. Shall we continue? If you were to look at the man you admire, the one whose resolve never shakes, whose decisions are final, whose movements feel inevitable, you might think he was born that way. But you would be wrong. He was not born unbreakable. He became unbreakable through one thing: repetition. Not talent, not luck, not even brilliance. Repetition. Let me tell you something most men will never grasp. Your identity, that voice in your head that tells you who you are, is not permanent. It is a pattern. And patterns can be rewritten, rebuilt, reinforced. If you do it long enough, if you speak it with enough emotion, if you act on it with enough consistency, the old self falls away and a new one is born. This is not inspiration, this is engineering. Let us return to Henry Ford, a man who had little formal education, few early advantages, and no immediate success. But Ford repeated one thing more than anything else: belief. He said, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right." That was not a clever quote for a poster. That was the bedrock of his being. He did not repeat limitations. He repeated possibility. He did not rehearse failure. He rehearsed certainty. And in doing so, over and over, day after day, he trained his mind to ignore doubt until doubt no longer recognized him. The question is, what have you been rehearsing? Have you been rehearsing hesitation, replaying failure, repeating thoughts that belong to someone weaker than the man you are becoming? Because repetition is not just what you do, it's who you become. And every time you repeat weakness, you reinforce it. Every time you repeat doubt, you build a mind that sees through the lens of fear. But every time you repeat strength, even if it doesn't feel real yet, you begin to install a new identity, one that does not flinch, one that does not fold. Thomas Edison knew this. His laboratories were not just places of invention, they were temples of repetition. He didn't succeed by inspiration. He succeeded by consistency. Each failure was not a step back. It was a step forward because it was embedded in a larger pattern. Keep going no matter what. That is the mindset of mastery. So now I tell you, if you want to be unbreakable when life applies pressure, don't wait for motivation. Build discipline. Don't wait for courage. Repeat courage. Say it aloud. Not once, not twice, but every day. I do not hesitate. I do not fold. I act without delay. Write it. Speak it. Walk it. Until the identity you repeat becomes the only one you recognize. You must begin to schedule your identity, not your tasks, your identity. Each morning, you speak who you are becoming. Each evening, you confirm who you were that day. And in between, you act like it's already done. This is how men become bulletproof. Not by luck, not by talk, by repetition. You do not become fearless by accident. You become fearless by choice, repeated until it becomes instinct. So I ask you again, who are you rehearsing? The old you, who doubts, who pauses, who drifts, or the new you, who speaks with clarity, acts with force, and refuses to go backward? Choose, and then repeat it relentlessly. Say it now, with certainty. Every day I repeat strength. Every day I install discipline. Every day I become a man who cannot be broken. This is not philosophy. This is your blueprint. Print it into your soul, because the man who masters repetition masters himself. And the man who masters himself fears nothing. Let us continue. You say you want strength. You say you want power. You say you want to become the man who can't be shaken. But let me ask you, what do you do when pressure comes? Because every man talks about greatness until the weight hits. Until the trial shows up, until life presses its hand against your chest and asks, do you really mean it? Pressure is not the enemy. Pressure is the test. It is the proof of who you are. When you build a sword, it must pass through fire. When you build a man, he must pass through resistance. That's how greatness is forged, not in peace, but in conflict, not in applause, but in silence. Not when things are easy, but when everything screams quit and you say no. Thomas Edison understood this better than most. The man failed over 10,000 times before the light bulb gave birth to success. And do you think those failures were quiet? Do you think they didn't come with voices from the world, from his own mind, saying enough is enough? But Edison didn't flinch because he had already decided. The pressure didn't scare him. It clarified him. It revealed the steel in his spirit. And that's what pressure does. It reveals you. If you fold, it means you never truly built the foundation you claim to have. But if you rise, even if it hurts, even if you shake, even if your hands bleed, then the pressure becomes your birthplace, not your grave. Abraham Lincoln, in the darkest night of American history during the Civil War, was being torn from every side. Half the country hated him. His allies doubted him. The blood of brothers spilled on soil meant for union. And yet, Lincoln did not fold. He bore the pressure. He passed through it because he had a vision of unity, stronger than the pull of destruction. That vision made him unshakable. You too will face your war. It may not be on a battlefield. It may not be public, but it will come. The day when your strength is not theoretical, it must be proven. And that day will define you. Let me be very clear. If you run from pressure, you run from power. If you avoid stress, you avoid strength. If you seek only ease, you sentence yourself to weakness. But if you embrace the pressure, if you see it as the opportunity to become the man you claim to be, then every burden becomes a tool, every trial becomes a teacher, and every storm becomes a forge for the unbreakable spine you're building. Let me give you a principle that will serve you for the rest of your life. Pain is not punishment. It is permission to rise. The moment you feel resistance, that is the moment most men quit. But not you. Not anymore. Because now you know pressure isn't in your way. It's your path. And every second you endure it, you become harder to stop. Say this aloud. Pressure does not weaken me. It reveals my strength. Resistance is not the end. It is the beginning. Every time life tries to break me, I grow sharper. You do not become a diamond in silence. You become a diamond under the weight. And the only question is, will you endure long enough to emerge on the other side like unshaken, unbroken, untouchable? Repeat this daily, and you will. Because the man who trains under pressure is the man who cannot be defeated. Let us move forward. There is a truth that every man must face sooner or later, and most wait too long to face it. You cannot reach the summit with one hand still holding the safety rope. You cannot conquer your calling while keeping a door open to retreat. If you want to win, you must remove the option to lose, not in the world, but in your own mind. Burn the bridge. The man who leaves an escape route never commits fully. His energy is divided. His mind is conflicted. And fear? Fear lives in the presence of options. Options to delay, options to retreat, options to play it safe. But the man who decides, really decides, leaves no room for backtracking. He burns the boat. He shatters the lifeline. He commits to the path, even if the road turns steep, dark, and painful. Because for him, the outcome is not a possibility, it is a demand. Andrew Carnegie taught me this law firsthand. He once said, "A man who seeks greatness must first destroy every excuse that allows him to remain small." And he lived it. When he decided to rise from poverty and become the world's industrial leader, he didn't leave a back door open to comfort or mediocrity. He worked like his life depended on it, because it did. Carnegie didn't chase wealth. He chased commitment, full, unflinching commitment to a singular aim, and that commitment made every obstacle temporary. Henry Ford did the same. When he faced financial collapse, public humiliation, and fierce competition, he didn't search for another industry to pivot into. He didn't entertain thoughts of failure. He didn't ask, "What if it doesn't work?" He said, "It will work, because I refuse to entertain anything else." That's what burning the bridge looks like. And it's not poetic, it's strategic, and it's not emotional, it's essential. Because so long as you can go back, you will. The moment pressure rises, the subconscious mind listens closely. If you feed it doubt, even subtle doubt, even hidden doubt, it will find a way to sabotage you. But when you say, "There is no going back," and you reinforce it with repetition, decision, and action, your subconscious aligns with the mission. It says, "We have no other choice but to win." Let me tell you plainly, You will not make it to the end of your purpose while dragging the past behind you. You will not become the man you were born to be while still clinging to the excuses of the man you used to be. So ask yourself, what bridges must you burn? What exits must you close? What version of you must you bury so that a stronger one can rise? This is not about recklessness. It's about finality. It's about telling your own mind, we do not turn back. Say this now. I do not entertain escape. I do not flirt with failure. I move forward, and I do not look back. Let those words become the wall that keeps fear out. Let them become the foundation that your identity is built upon. You don't need more motivation. You need more finality. You need to burn the bridge that once kept fear alive and walk into your future with nothing but fire behind you, because the man who leaves no way back becomes the man who must find a way forward. And he always does. Let us press into the next part, where we will destroy the illusion of perfect timing and unlock the mindset of immediate execution. Shall we? There is a dangerous lie that has stopped more men than failure ever could. It is the myth of the right time, the belief that one day, when the stars align, when the pressure fades, when the finances are perfect, when the confidence arrives, then a man will act. But let me make it clear, there is no right time. There is only now and not now. That's it. Every other category is fiction. The man who waits for ideal conditions is the man who dies with his best work still trapped inside his mind. Thomas Edison didn't wait for permission. He didn't wait for the perfect team, the perfect lab, the perfect headline. He began, he acted, and he failed more times than most men ever attempt. But those failures were action failures, not hesitation failures. And that is why he succeeded. Understand this deeply. Motion attracts momentum, but hesitation attracts more hesitation. Every time you delay, your subconscious mind hears the delay and thinks, this is dangerous. We aren't ready. Let's not move. And so it wires you with fear. And soon the idea that once lit your soul now terrifies you. Not because it's impossible, but because you paused. Let me share something that Henry Ford understood better than any man in his generation. Speed matters. Not speed in results, speed in decision, speed in execution. Ford once said, you can't build a reputation on what you are going to do. Think about that. He didn't become one of the wealthiest men in the world by waiting for everyone to agree. He acted before they believed. He built before they clapped. He moved and forced the world to adjust. The most dangerous habit a man can form is hesitation, because it disguises itself as wisdom. It looks responsible. It feels intelligent. It sounds like just being cautious. But in truth, it's fear in a tuxedo. It's fear in disguise, and it robs men of their destiny by convincing them to wait. You must kill this belief now. The belief that tomorrow will be better. The belief that someday you'll be ready. Someday is the deathbed of dreams. No man becomes great by accident. No man looks back at a life of mastery and says, I waited until it felt perfect. He says, I moved when it was hard. I acted when I didn't feel ready. I trusted my decision more than my emotions. Abraham Lincoln did not wait for peace before taking action. He made war with injustice. He made bold declarations in times of division. He did not ask the nation to calm down first. He stepped into the storm because the mission mattered more than the moment. And that's what you must do. You must begin before you feel ready. You must move even when your hands tremble. You must trust your identity, not your feelings. Say this now. I do not wait to feel strong. I act, and strength follows. I am not a man who waits. I am a man who moves. The time is now, because I say it is. That is what the subconscious understands. Repeated commands with emotional conviction. You see, when you act before you feel ready, something amazing happens. Your nervous system catches up. Your confidence builds in the action. Your mind begins to obey your identity instead of your excuses. This is the law of power. Action rewires the man. You don't act because you feel ready, and you feel ready because you acted. So I challenge you, stop looking for the right time. It does not exist. The clock is your enemy. The calendar is a coward's tool when it is used to delay destiny. Your mission is waiting. Your next step is waiting. And fear? Fear is hoping you'll think about it a little longer. Don't. Move now, and let the world watch in confusion as you build without permission. There is a reason most men fail to finish what they begin. It is not because they lack skill, and it is not because they lack resources. It is because they lack command over the one thing that governs every decision, every action, every moment of courage or retreat. That thing is emotion. Let me speak to you with absolute clarity. The man who does not control his emotions will never control his destiny. Emotions are like weather patterns. They change, they shift, they come and go with no warning, no schedule, no guarantee. If your sense of direction depends on how you feel, you will be a slave to moods. You will act when happy, stall when tired, and fold when challenged. The truth is this: feelings are not facts. They are suggestions, whispers, temporary guests in the house of your mind. But most men treat them like kings, obeying every rise, every fall, every inner signal, as if emotion equals truth. It does not. Emotion is reactive. Purpose is proactive. Andrew Carnegie once told me, "The man who learns to rule himself will soon rule many." He did not mean rule through force. He meant rule through example, through presence, through the ability to stand firm when others collapse. That begins with one skill: emotional mastery. Let me ask you, how often have you betrayed your future because of a temporary emotion? How many times have you given in to fear, to doubt, to anger, to fatigue, and chosen the easier path? The truth is, it's not the difficult days that define a man. It's who he becomes on those difficult days. When the pressure mounts, when the plan fails, when you wake up with a storm inside you, what do? Most men retreat. They justify, they delay. They say things like, "No, not today. I'm not in the right headspace. No, I'll get back on track tomorrow." But here is the reality. Every time you give your emotions the final word, you weaken your identity. You teach your subconscious that your feelings are more powerful than your mission. And soon, that becomes your rhythm. But the man who masters himself, he acts despite how he feels. He does not deny his emotions, he overrules them. That is what separates the builder from the dreamer. Let me give you an example. Thomas Edison had every reason to quit. 10,000 failures, public mockery, financial strain, the pressure of time, expectation, and doubt. But he did not allow frustration or fatigue to become his guide. He acted anyway. And in that decision, he trained his nervous system, his subconscious mind, and his very soul to follow identity, not emotion. When asked how he endured such relentless failure, Edison replied, "I have not failed. I've found 10,000 ways that won't work." Do you understand the strength behind those words? That is not just a clever saying, and it is a discipline of emotional command. Now, let me speak to you directly. There will be days when you don't want to continue, when your body aches, when your heart feels heavy, when the outcome is unclear and your mind is filled with doubt. And on those days, you must act anyway, because the man you are becoming, the real you, is not determined by how you feel. He is revealed by how you respond when your emotions scream for retreat. Emotional control is not about pretending. It is not about suppressing your pain. It is about overriding it. It is about being the captain of your ship when the sea is wild. Henry Ford was no stranger to emotional storms. He was criticized by newspapers, betrayed by partners, doubted by the masses. Yet he continued to build because he had trained himself to act with mechanical consistency. Whether the day was easy or brutal, Ford moved forward. That consistency became his edge. So how do you build this kind of control? Let me teach you the discipline. Name the emotion, but don't obey it. When the fear rises, say, "This is fear." When anger comes, say, "This is anger." But then you say, "I do not obey this. I act anyway." Why? Because naming separates you from the feeling. It removes the illusion that you are the emotion. You are not. You are the observer, and the observer can choose. Anchor yourself to identity, not mood. Your identity must be more powerful than how you feel in a single moment. You must rehearse this truth every day. I am the man who moves no matter what. Say it aloud. Say it often. Let your subconscious hear it until it becomes default. Because if your identity is tied to action, not comfort, your actions will rise above your state. Create rituals that activate power. The greatest men I've studied did not wait to feel powerful. They had rituals to summon it. Andrew Carnegie meditated daily on his definite purpose. Charles Schwab would begin each morning by reviewing his mission, not checking the news or gossip. You must do the same. Create anchors. It may be your affirmations, a cold shower, a walk in silence, a declaration in the mirror. Whatever it is, repeat it daily, because repetition creates emotional stability. Expect resistance and welcome it. The builder does not curse the hammer for being heavy. He trains with it. So when the emotion comes, the fear, the doubt, the fatigue, do not be shocked. Welcome it like an old rival. Smile and say, "You came again? Good. Let's dance." And then you act. You move anyway. Let me remind you what Abraham Lincoln carried on his shoulders: the fate of a divided nation, the burden of civil war, the screams of public criticism. And yet, he endured. He wrote. He led. He did not allow his private pain to become public paralysis. That is emotional control. It is not about being numb. It is about being so aligned with purpose that the emotions of the moment cannot detour you from the mission. Say this with me now. I am not my feelings. I am my decisions. I do not obey emotion. I obey mission. I feel fear. I feel doubt. But I move anyway because I lead my state. These are not affirmations. These are commands. You speak them not to soothe yourself, but to restructure yourself. Because every time you act with power while feeling weak, you build a spine made of steel. And over time, the fear that once ruled you becomes a whisper. The doubt that once stalled you becomes irrelevant. The hesitation that once kept you in place becomes impossible to access, because your identity no longer allows it. This, my friend, is the fruit of emotional control. You do not wait for peace to move. You bring peace with your movement. You do not seek calm. You embody it. And when the going gets hard, when the weight is heavy, you do not collapse. You rise, you act, and the world adjusts. Let us now move forward into the next and final part of this speech, where we plant the flag of finality and declare war on retreat itself. We will bring together everything we have learned and finish what we started. Are you ready? Let us now speak the final word, not to conclude, but to begin again with more certainty, more power, more fire than you have ever known. Because this is not the end of a speech. This is the birth of a new man. And that birth does not happen with a single decision. It happens with repetition. You must hear these words again. You must speak these truths again. You must return to this message, not once, not twice, but daily, until the version of you who used to hesitate, who used to fold, who used to shrink, is no longer alive. Because the transformation you desire is not a spark. It is a rhythm. It is the daily, deliberate, unrelenting reinforcement of identity until it becomes unquestionable. You do not listen to this once and change. You install it. You do not treat this as inspiration. You treat it as instruction. You do not wait for the message to return to you. You return to it. That is what the greatest men I ever studied understood. Andrew Carnegie did not become powerful through a single conversation or flash of insight. He returned to his beliefs every day. He repeated his purpose. He fed his mind with the same truths again and again until there was no more room left for contradiction. He did not meditate once. He meditated forever. Henry Ford, too, knew the law. When he said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right, he wasn't being poetic. He was being precise. He was describing the science of belief by repetition. He installed the thought of success so deeply that the thoughts of doubt had no oxygen to live. You must do the same. This speech is not a message. It is a mirror. One you must return to until the reflection becomes who you are. You must rise every morning and hear it again. You must walk with it in your ears when the day feels heavy. You must close your eyes at night and rehearse the lines that call you to rise above the fear, the fatigue, the fleeting moods. Because every time you repeat this speech, you drive it deeper. You dig a new trench in the landscape of your subconscious. And that trench becomes the path your thoughts begin to walk, automatically. Let me be clear. The man who listens once is entertained. The man who listens 10 times is inspired. But the man who listens daily and speaks the words with power, he becomes transformed. This is the law of autosuggestion. This is the science of identity. You must burn these truths into your soul. Say this with me now. I will not forget who I am becoming. I do not let fear rewrite my programming. I repeat power until power becomes natural. Because the truth is simple, my friend. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are simply untrained. And the training begins with repetition. Every man who became great, Edison, Carnegie, Ford, Schwab, Lincoln, they all knew the same secret. If you repeat belief with emotion long enough, it replaces every limitation. So I say this now with force and finality. Do not leave this message behind. Do not move on to the next thing. Do not treat this speech as another dose of motivation. This is your discipline now. You wake up, you play this speech. You walk alone. You repeat its words. You feel doubt creeping in. You override it with these lines. Because repetition is not boring. It is the chisel that shapes the stone. And if you want to be forged, and if you want to be unshakable, immovable, undeniable, then you must hammer these truths into your spirit daily. You will forget. You will drift. That is human. But if you repeat, if you return, if you recommit to these truths again and again, eventually you will wake up one morning, and the man who feared the world, he will be gone. And in his place, a man who moves with silence, a man who walks through resistance like wind, a man who no longer hopes for strength because strength has become his default. Repeat. That is the instruction. Not tomorrow and now. Repeat until doubt cannot find your name. Repeat until hesitation cannot enter your posture. Repeat until your voice carries the weight of identity, not effort. Repeat until your actions no longer require motivation. Repeat until discipline becomes nature. And when the going gets hard, as it will, you will not collapse. You will not cry out for help. You will not retreat into the past. You will stand not because you feel like it, but because you have trained for it. And when that moment comes, when you face the trial, you will not say, I don't know what to do. You will hear these words echo in your soul. You will hear this rhythm, this fire, this standard, and you will move because repetition built you for this. So say it one last time with the full power of your voice. I do not need to feel ready. I repeat readiness. I do not search for strength. I speak it. I do not listen once. I live this daily. This is your final word, your beginning, your new rhythm, your rebirth. And now return to the start and begin again. Let it repeat.